Hello! In today's video, we're going to be continuing our series of revisiting my old Game Jam games. This one is going to be my third Game Jam game. It's called Survey Mission Gamma 9B, and it's a short sci-fi story game. Let's make this a little bit bigger. I'm going to press run game, but I'm going to click over here. This was done for the Interstellar Game Jam 6. I got second place overall, and I was very close to first, but that's how it goes. What you're hearing right now is music that I composed special for it. Yeah, I think this one was good. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I'm surprised at how fast it loaded. Let's go ahead and go full screen. Now you might notice that there's not a proper menu this time. And what's going on with that is I was using a beta build of Unity 6 and or maybe it was an alpha. But either way, the version of Unity that I was using, it wouldn't allow me to actually have multiple scenes in the build. There was some glitch and it wouldn't let me add or compile or something like that. So I was just like, okay, I guess everything's going to be in one scene. So there's 0 scene transitions in this, just one scene. So, you can walk around. You can see we've got our little narration down here. I might sneeze, maybe. Oh, I'm still in the big version, so I guess I'll read the narration to you. It probably makes sense for the video, right? It says, I'm on a mission to survey a promising planet on the frontier. After 54 days, oh no, I waited too long. But after 54 days of isolating deep space travel, I'm finally nearing the goal or whatever. And the theme of the game jam this time was isolation. I think we had like 4 or 5 days to work on this. You can walk around, you can press E, and there's, little text pop-ups for different stuff. You can see this is actually a screenshot of me making the game. And this laptop on this very desk in particular in wireframe in Blender. This is another instance where I used Blender as a level editor because it's great, where I did the entirety of this ship in Blender, of course. Long distance telemetry showed a particularly dense Oort cloud surrounding the system. I'll have to drop out of hyperspace to navigate it manually. So, that lets the player know when they come to the cockpit that they can exit hyperspace over here and continue the game. You can also, goof around and interact with the shower or the stove, the sink, the refrigerator, the hyperdrive, etc. You might notice this railing in here. That's because there was going to be a cargo bay, which you can open and close, but I didn't get around to actually doing anything with that really, aside from the mechanic for opening and closing the door there. It happens, it's Game Jam game. You're going really fast. Everything was done from scratch here, including this texture that you're looking at during the Game Jam time, including all of these, displays and everything of the system here, as well as, the ship displays, which are just wireframe views of the actual ship. But, yeah, we'll just press E to exit hyperspace. Now, unfortunately, in the web version, there's a little bit of a lag spike there as we load in 50 bajillion asteroids. It says dropping out of hyperspace. I'll have to get through these asteroids. You can see I've got spaceship controls over in the lower left there, and I've got a little compass there to help guide the players. I didn't want people to get lost. I've learned that it's really important to explain how the game is played in the game. Nobody reads the descriptions of games where you list controls. It's just not gonna happen. So yeah, you can shoot these asteroids, you can destroy them. If you, say, bump into one, it will damage your ship. And you can, just fly around. If you've if you want to make a spaceship controller exactly like this, I have made a tutorial on that. I used the exact same code from that tutorial for this Game Jam game. So, you know, we just start heading towards the star. We're just navigating through the Orc Cloud manually, right? And we'll go on through. Also, shout out to I don't know if he prefers to be called Shadow the Boss or Sombra El Jefe. He goes by both in the Discord, but he's the guy that does this jam. Really nice guy, and I'm sure he'd appreciate it if you joined the Interstellar Game Jam community. So, you know, I've cleared the Orc Cloud, jumping to hyperspace for the last part of the trip. Now, if you want to, you know, you can arm the sensor array and you can continue the story. Or if you felt like you didn't get a good enough look around the ship before, you can walk back and check things out. But yeah, you know, I think we're pretty set. So we'll just arm the sensor array, deactivate the hyperdrive, and just unspool the hyperdrive coil, and wow, there it is, out to the right, a whole new planet, completely unique and full of possibilities, and I'm the first human being to ever lay eyes on it. I might live in isolation, but I have the best job in the galaxy. Since the theme was isolation, you know, like I'm not exactly a social butterfly. I know isolation often has very negative connotations, and I wanted to make it more of a positive thing because being alone can be pretty awesome. So yeah, there's the planet out there, and so we can just perform the planetary scan here, and I'm really happy with how this came out. This is the scanner screen, and oh, let's see, we got one there. If you've played Mass Effect 2, this probably looks very familiar. Also, let's just look around, because that's exactly what inspired this. It's very much, it's not exactly the same, but is pretty damn similar. There we go. And so you can tell if you're getting closer by the sound changing, and when you're like really on top of it, it's gotta be getting... There we go. When you're really on top of it, it starts really spazzing out visually as well. And then you can click and you can mark that tritium deposit. There we go. This planet is full of tritium. I'm gonna get a huge commission off this job. Oh, what's that? Another ship just showed up. Wait a second. I recognize that ship. I better check communications. I'm certain that's Zelenko's ship. He's another freelance surveyor. It's not the first time he's shown up right after I finished scanning a planet. Bad luck on his part. This guy, he came out ugly, and maybe doesn't necessarily look like I probably could have done better. But again, you know, it's during a jam. Quick model there. But yeah, we can answer communications. Captain Zelenko says, "This is the last time you beat me to a job. We're all alone out here. I'm going to blast you to bits and claim the data from the survey for myself." So the next thing we can do is charge lasers. Damn that fool Zelenko. Looks like I'm gonna have to fight my way out of this. So, you know, it's not terribly complicated, but we got a little space fight here. I didn't have necessarily a lot of time to write a really good enemy ship AI, but I'm happy enough with how the explosion and destruction came out. Such a shame. I'm glad I survived his attack, but I wish it hadn't come to this. See little pieces of the wreckage. That's the end of the story. Thank you so much for playing. I hope you had fun. So yeah, that's the game in a nutshell. It's just a super quick story. At this point, you know, you can kind of fly around, but while the planet is actually physical geometry, it is set at a constant distance away from you so you can never reach it. And yeah. Um, let's see. So we can, oh, there's settings here. You know, if you wanted to turn up or down the music, you can do that. You got the spaceship look sensitivity and the first look sensitivity. I'll have a link in the description if you want to play it yourself. And I will launch up the Unity editor project now, and we can take a look at it inside there. Okie dokie. Here we are in the editor version of the project. I want to call attention to, here we go. The way that this was structured is very similar to the way that if you watched my Wowie Jam video, since that one was also story-based, that was my first Game Jam game, I did a similar thing where I have different acts and story beats separated into different game objects. So I have Act 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe I have somewhere. Bear in mind, I haven't opened the project in a while, and it was a jam, so things are, not necessarily most organized that they could be. But there is somewhere where essentially everything, when you launch the game, is all of the acts are disabled, and then Act 1 is enabled. And so that made it so that basically I could leave things like Act 3 and Act 4 open while I was just kind of, you know, uh, working on stuff here without like messing up everything, right? And so that's why you can already see the planet, which wouldn't actually show up till much later, right? I think, or I guess I just have yeah. Well, okay. Oh, probably in the game manager script. Yeah. So reset state on load is on my game manager here, and so you can see I have enabled these, and I have Act 1, static area, player, hyperspace, and disable these, where I disable the dynamic ship, Act 3, Act 4, normal space, planet, scanner, planet stuff, etc. So somebody asked this comment on the spaceship tutorial in Unity, which I can like toss up here super duper quick. Um, maybe not. My internet's not that great. I'll edit it in. So somebody asked this question like, "Hey, how would you take this rigid body spaceship controller that you just made and make it so that you can walk around inside the ship, right?" And that's what I did in this game jam, right? And this isn't the only way to do this. If there's one thing any new people can take from my videos, please take this. There is never one single or one right way to do anything. There is so many ways to do all sorts of things, and it really depends. It's a nuanced thing. I think like public school forces people to think that there's one single correct answer, and like that is not the case at all. There's so many different ways to do things. This way worked in this case, and it worked well. It was super fast and easy to implement, so it worked good for this Game Jam game. It would technically be cooler if I didn't do it exactly like this, but this is how I did it, and it works just fine. So the way that this does work is I have this static version of the ship, right? And so every time you're walking around in the ship, it is this ship right here that you're walking around in. And then, as well as, this first person player controller here. And then when we're actually flying the ship, I disable that. And I go ahead and enable the dynamic ship, wherever that is, right here. So this is the dynamic ship, and you'll notice that I cut out the interior to it. To some degree, I did just, model this ship with an interior in the first place, but I mostly cut out the interior, and I gave it, collision meshes, I gave it rigid bodies, I gave it some hit scan laser ships, the player spaceship script that I make in that tutorial, how to make a rigid body spaceship controller in Unity. And yeah, you can also see that I have a player ship health script here. And this is something, I think this was the first time I really started doing this. I had this idea for Unity events. I think I mentioned that I do this now in a previous video, but just doing a serialized Unity event and whenever you want to do something cool or special, right? Like there's a lot of things that need to happen if the player dies. And so, we need to run the death screen. We need to disable different things. The only time the player really can die is in the asteroid belt or when you're fighting Captain Zelenko's ship. And you could hard code all that, sure, but like, why? You can just put something that has serialized Unity event on there, and you can add in all these different things that you need to do, and then you don't have to recompile code anytime you want to change stuff. So this allows me to, basically just turn everything on and off and stuff. I think this other thing, yeah. So we set this ship inactive, and I think there's I could swear. Oh, part of death screen is, and you didn't see this when I was playing through it before, but there's like death camera here, and then there's enemy ship destroyed, where I just use the same prefab that I used for when you destroy the other ship, and I make it so that it blows up your ship instead. So yeah, pretty easy there, right? And it's just a great way to structure things, particularly during a game jam. I don't know that it necessarily has huge scalability to a bigger game, but for a game jam, it's a really good way to make fast story beats and just iterate. Because keep in mind, like, I'm not going into this with a plan. I don't know really, like, I have a little bit of a plan, I have an inkling of an idea, but it's evolving as I'm making the game. So when I started the game, I didn't necessarily know that there was going to be ship combat at the end. And yeah, it's just a good way to keep things kind of loosey goosey and iterative in a non frustrating way. So yeah, I think that's the main thing that I wanted to touch on for talking about how this works, the difference between the static area for the ship and the dynamic ship. So every time we end a dynamic ship section of the game, we come back to the static ship area and we disable the dynamic ship, and then we put it back at 000. The static ship never actually moves. That way, I don't have to figure out the math and the physics for the player controller, which is just using the Unity basic character controller component. And yeah, it just makes it nice and easy and simple. Um, and I don't think I'm not the only games that's done this. I don't think. Other possible solutions for this problem of walking around in spaceships in games is, of course, the obvious. You use like your big brain that like do we really, big brains. Maybe not there in game jam. Maybe you can figure it out. But you figure out how to make a character controller that actually works in a spaceship that is moving, right? And that involves some good math, some robust math. I haven't actually tried it. I don't know how difficult it would be. I'm told that it's difficult, but I've been told that a lot of things are difficult that turned out to not actually be very difficult. So another way you can do it is you can also just make the world around the player move. And so then you always retain your static ship, but the world is moving around you. And so it appears that you're moving because of relative motion, right? And that way you can have essentially the same kind of thing that I have here where I'm cheating the moving ship. Um, and that would work too. So I think that's kind of the only three ways to do it. Do it for real, do it static with a dynamic ship that you swap in and out when you need to. You can also like potentially in this case, I'm always resetting the dynamic ship to a static ship area. You could actually bring the static ship and the player to a dynamic ships area too, to make this more scalable to a bigger game. That would theoretically work as well, right? Or again, the third method where it's always a static ship and the world moves around you, like the Planet Express ship. Or maybe the Enterprise as well. I think they were referencing the Enterprise, but I don't I think that was in one of the Star Trek movies, one of the original series Star Trek movies, and I didn't watch that one. I watched the whole show, and I've seen some of the movies, but I don't know. Regardless, let's move on. So I think I've talked a lot about the way that this works technically, and let's just kind of do a review of, some of the work that I did for the art assets. Obviously, so this one was I don't think I used. Okay, I think I used. Let's turn off this dynamic ship, and let's put on the static ship. Um, I made the textures during the game jam, with the exception of the fabric texture on the bed, and I believe that was all. I got that from. It was in here. I saw it before I started the screen recording. Um, hmm. I don't know where it is, but yeah, there's one texture somewhere in here. Oh, this is something I do that if I worked in a team, people would probably hate me for. Uh, but because my workflow in Unity uh, is really crisscrossy with Blender. And the way that textures work in Blender is like usually it tries to find a local file path, and it's easiest to have your textures packed into Blender file when they're just right next to it in your folder hierarchy on Windows or Mac OS. So something I'll do kind of out of convenience a lot of times that as you just saw, confused me, so it's not necessarily great practice, is I will put textures for certain models in the models folder in my Unity structure instead of the textures folder. So yeah, it's a lot of times it's not usually a problem because I know that it's there, and if I have a specific, like, there's no real characters in this because the one character that you see is a pre-rendered guy that I sculpted really quick and just rendered. Um, but like all of the yeah, so here's the one asset that I used, this textures.com fabric plane seamless. I got this before they closed their doors. Once like AI came around, they're all like, no free one texture credit or whatever a month for you. It's a bummer, but yeah. And it's still handy. Anywho, these textures though, the all these white panels normal, etc. I actually made these during the game jam, including the orange tiles. This one I made before, and then it's nowhere in the game because I hate that texture. This is the replacement, the orange tiles as well as the light tiles, and I made those in Photoshop. Um, there's a specific filter that I've been meaning to try for this kind of look for a long time. You can see them out here. I don't know that it really came out great, but good enough for some like weird random tiles, right? Let's open up the ship. This is just basic poly modeling stuff, but I do want to, as soon as it loads, call attention to one thing here, which is, so, okay, I want to call attention to two things. Here's the ship in Blender, obviously, and if I press Shift tilde on the keyboard, then it gives you this walking/fly around mode in Blender. And if I press tab, then it turns on gravity, and I can walk around in this spaceship at the exact same height as a Unity capsule for like a default player controller would be in Blender. And so yeah, that's what I did for making this. That's what I do anytime I'm using Blender more as a level editor. And so you can see that I made essentially the not just the whole ship, but all of the panels and everything in Blender. All of the beds, furniture, the fridge, everything is made in Blender. But what I wanted to call attention to here is the beautiful, wonderful, wonderful solidify modifier, which is what I use to, oh dear, there we go, to give the ship some thickness and make it so that it had both an interior and an exterior. If I turn off solidify, you can see we have the normal one-sided faces, which is no bueno. One thing worth noting too is I extracted these planes of the windows so that those could just be one plane thick, and then I was left with, you know, this part of the kind of frame there, and so I used solidify to give that thickness as well, and that's kind of what allows otherwise the windows would have, you know, two thicknesses in them, and like these would be transparent, like it would be hollow geometry that you could see in because it's transparent on this side. It would look like shit. So trust me on this. This is the way to do it. And let's see. The other thing of note, the other windows over here, the galley windows, those are just booleans, you know, nothing terribly special there. I just modeled this shape, made a bigger version to, you know, be the rim of the window or whatever you call it, and then did a boolean through both of that and the ship itself. And yeah, that's the ship in a nutshell. We can close that up. And asteroid was, you know, crazy simple. I don't know if I even really need to open it. uh it's just, you know, a little cube. I subdivided it. I think I used yeah, I used the multi-resolution workflow. I did another video on that where I used it for sword, but this is the exact same thing except I used it for an asteroid, and that's how I baked it down to a very, very slim, let's see how many polys, statistics. Um, yeah, you know, 96 faces here. And we've got a normal map providing like pretty decent detail, right? Um, and there's what it looked like high. Here's what it looks like low. So yeah, that's all the asteroid is. Again, link in the description for the normal map multi-resolution workflow. Um, this is the enemy ship, which is the exact same. It's not the exact same as the player ship, but I modified the player ship to make the enemy ship. So it's you know, doesn't really have like a nice interior or anything, of course. If you don't need to see it, don't model it. Let's close that up, and then I'll show you the enemy ship destroyed, which is the same model, except I just, you know, cut out chunks and stuff, separated them, gave them some thickness, etc. And then, you know, I put in some random shit to imply that there's an actual interior to this as well. So then you put rigid bodies on this, colliders on this, and then once you put it in Unity and you spawn it in, because all of the colliders are intersecting a little bit, because colliders are never perfectly accurate, really. Well, they can be, but you know what I mean. They're typically not. Then yeah, it all blows apart like in its explosion, and then you know, particle prefab that I whipped up in there. And yeah, let's see, this is something worth mentioning too. Obviously this is a lot longer than my previous Game Jam videos, but this game was better than those other games. So this is the texture that I made for the interior of the spaceship. And this is another area where Blender shines, right? You can make textures in it, basically, right? So, yeah, they're just, you know, these little patterns, basically just boxes and stuff that I placed together. Used an image texture, a couple of image textures that I made forever ago. I've been using these image textures. I made them seamless forever ago. That, I don't know, at least 20 years now, probably, maybe 15. But yeah, then, you know, you put your camera at the top, you render it out, and you've got the textures for the inside of the spaceship. And I think probably the last thing to show here. Um, this is yeah, sometimes for this case, because Captain Zelenkos is, he's not like a 3D model in the actual game because that would have taken like a lot of time, right? I sculpted him really quick and he lives in Blender, but I never put his 3D model file in the actual game's hierarchy, which means I have to remember when in the world I made this game. I think it was 2024, maybe June 2024. Yeah, I nailed it. So Alien Captain Blend here, modeled him during the game jam as well. Take a while to load. Do. And I slightly rigged him. I didn't bother modeling legs because I knew I wasn't gonna show his legs, right? Um, quick texture on there. That I kind of regret this texture because it in the end it kind of ended up looking like, with the transparency of the hologram display, like he didn't have arms, right? Like he's just like wearing a t-shirt and floating there. um, but yeah, I I could swear. Okay, I guess I must have deleted his interior geometry. Oh, but I have this original file here. Let's see if we can see that. Yeah, okay. So you can see I did more anatomy work for this random alien dude than I actually needed to. Um, and then I also feel like maybe I did like a little bit too much cloth folds on him. I don't know. uh, you win some, you lose some, right? Just put those same metal panels in the background. I've long like wanted to do an alien with four eyes, kind of like Batarians from Mass Effect. I love that game series. Obviously, big inspiration to me. Um, and yeah, did I do? Yeah, there's some basic retopology that I did on this, I guess. So you can see we can move his arms around because I retopologized and rigged him really quickly. And if we go in here, you can see I'm using the multi-resolution workflow again, except this time, and I mentioned this in I think I mentioned this in the third normal map video that I made. The one where I talk about the hybrid technique that's kind of like half baking, half not baking. So you can just leave the multi-resolution modifier on there, and you can have this very optimized viewport display. But then you can crank those levels up for your final render, right? So that's what I did with him, and that allowed me to both rig him really fast because I had less polygons to work with, and pose him a lot faster during the jam time. And I think that's pretty much it. Nothing too interesting remaining, like just random textures that I made. I guess my head is probably blocking these a little bit. Yeah, you can see like the spaceship controls. It's just an image texture, I just whipped it up in Photoshop. Um, and yeah, I think that's pretty much all it. So this was survey mission Gamma 9B. Arguably not the catchiest of names that I could have given it. Um, but yeah, I think it turned out well. It's probably, compared to, this was my third Game Jam game, right? And I think it's safe to say it was much better than the first two. I'm pretty happy with how this one came out. There's, areas for improvement, but again, it's a game jam, it's like 4 days of work or whatever. There's only so much you can do, and I learned a lot doing it. And I don't know if I mentioned this too much on the last two videos, but even that second game jam that was disaster, like I learned heaps. The first one I learned heaps. Every game jam, I learn a lot of stuff. And sometimes it's like it's not even necessarily like a new lesson. It's more like something that you conceptualize, and then when you finally put it into practice, then it feels more real, right? So again, that's more value to game jams is not just thinking like, well, hey, like, what if I used Unity events to drive story structure or something like that, or like, what if I set up a spaceship that's got a static component and that gets disabled and we go to the dynamic and then we switch things back and forth and stuff like that, instead of just thinking like, what if I do this? Just do it. Uh, that's what's great about game jams. Do it really fast, and then you can learn from it, and then you can, either implement it into a real game next, or try something else. But what's important in creativity and game development is like getting it out and there and in something, and that's what game jams are great for. Just lots of little prototypes. So next one up, I'm not going to do it in this video, but it's going to be Scalar Shaman. That was my first time participating in the GMTK Jam, and it's a kind of a messy one. I spent too much time on the main character. I'll get into this next video. Uh, I guess that ends this video. Thank you so much for watching. Glad to have you along here. Have a fantastic, wonderful night. Go make something really cool. Join the game jam if you haven't ever. You should do it if you're curious about games. Uh, maybe make like one small thing on your own first if you've like literally never done a game. But join the game jam. It's a deadline. It's a challenge, and you'll learn a lot, and it's a lot of fun, and you'll have something to show. That's another thing too. It's like how many there's a lot of people who make games and don't have anything to show for it because they are working on like one project for 5 years. And yeah, do a game jam, then you can show people like, hey, like I know people talk about like imposter syndrome and stuff in game development because they're like, well, I don't have anything to show. If you do a game jam in like 2 3, maybe a longer one like 4 days, you will have something to show, and then you don't have to have imposter syndrome because you are a game developer. You've developed the game, you've published it, even on itch.io. Bada bing bada boom. Anyways, don't forget, like, you deserve to be happy, you deserve good things, and have a great rest of your night and day. Bye bye.